Some good news for the Buccaneers as they go up against the top rushing offense in the NFL. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this live preview episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at @JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers as editor-in-chief of the 813.TV. Here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/locked on to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. Keys to the game and predictions coming up in a little bit, but let's start with some good news for the Bucs before their matchup with the Baltimore Ravens in the NFL's top rushing offense. Per Scott Reynolds of Pewter Report, the Buccaneers will have nose tackle Vita Vea tonight. Vita was listed as questionable after not practicing Saturday with a hamstring injury, but this is huge for the Buccaneers going up against Derrick Henry. We all know how much better the defense is when Vita and Kalijah Kancey are on the field together, but trying to slow down Derrick Henry without Vita in the middle was going to be a heck of a lot tougher. Now, they know that they have the anchor of the defensive line there to try and slow down Derrick Henry, or at least make enough contact with him to allow reinforcements to arrive and keep those gains minimal. As far as other injuries are concerned, of course, Mike Evans will play. He had his injury designation removed on Saturday's final injury report, but the Buccaneers are going to be without Jamel Dean, Payne Durham, Raheem Jarrett, and Cameron Johnson. Questionable coming into the game are Ernest Brown, Trey Palmer, and Rachaad White. Brown has not officially been activated off injured reserve as of this live show, but he would be another guy that could really help the Bucs run defense in a rotational role if he were to suit up. With Jamel Dean out, the Bucs are going to look to Zion McCollum to stop Zay Flowers, who has been on fire recently, back-to-back 100-plus yard games. Flowers is really starting to emerge now as a legitimate number one receiver for Lamar Jackson, making the Ravens offense all the more dangerous. I don't think Payne Durham or Cam Johnson were going to be big parts of the offense this week. So you're losing a little bit in terms of depth, but it opens the door for Devin Culp to see some action. Cade Otton struggled a little bit last week. He had the touchdown, but he had some pretty rough drops as well. The Ravens are susceptible to the tight end position. They are 27th in the NFL against the tight end. Culp could find himself getting some targets Monday night as the Bucs try to establish another receiving threat against one of the worst passing defenses in the league. Excuse me. Battling a little bit of a cold. Bear with me. Trey Palmer could provide that deep threat and may get a target early in this one if the Ravens do not respect his speed. Should Baker connect, that's really going to open things up for Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan in those short to intermediate routes. Defenses have to respect speed, especially if Baker is going to take shots. Even if they don't connect, Palmer getting behind the safeties will change the defensive approach of the Ravens. I mentioned the Ravens injuries on Friday's show, and while they have a few guys out, none of them were likely to be major impact players in this game. Wide receiver Deontay Hardy is now on injured reserve. You have running back Rasheen Ali out. Linebacker Malik Harrison is out. Defensive lineman Broderick Washington is doubtful. All of these are depth or rotational guys. So the Ravens are going to have their full allotment of playmakers for Monday's game. The Ravens are 22-1 against NFC opponents with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, and the Buccaneers have not beaten the Ravens since 2002. Yes, the Super Bowl season of 2002 was the last time the Bucs beat Baltimore. Baltimore has won 5 straight against Tampa Bay, and one of two things is going to happen in tonight's game. Either the Bucs snap the skid and move to 5-2, first place in the NFC South, second place in the NFC as a conference, or the Bucs are going to lose. And all the focus shifts to Atlanta next week, where the Bucs can get back into the hunt for the NFC South and hand the Falcons their first division loss of the season. Like Evan Klosky mentioned on Wednesday's episode, that is the more important game. Everyone's rooting for the Bucs to win. Well, I mean, not everybody, but obviously Bucs fans are not rooting for a loss. They care if the Buccaneers win or not. They're at home in front of a crowd for the first time since Hurricane Milton. That is going to be an emotional feeling. The Bucs are going to feed off of that energy, but it's not the end of the world if the Bucs lose. Next week is where we find out if we're still talking about the Bucs being in, the running to win the division and host a playoff game, or if the focus is going to shift to the wild card. And I understand there's a lot of time left. A lot of different things can happen, and the Bucs could end up with the better overall record than the Atlanta Falcons. But you do not want to dig yourself that big of a hole and essentially allow the Falcons to walk to a perfect record in the NFC South while you can only reach 4-2 at best. The Saints are not going to beat the Falcons. They are terrible. The Carolina Panthers are even worse, and they are not going to beat the Falcons. So it's up to the Bucs to force that 5-1 division record for the Falcons while they can try to get a 5-1 division record of their own. That's when you start going into those other tiebreakers and where the Bucs can gain an advantage. We know that schedule eases up after the bye week when you get to play the Giants and the Panthers twice. You get the Saints again. You get the Raiders. You get a lot of favorable matchups, but you don't want to rely on other teams to force the Falcons into a worse overall record than you. Get the upper hand next week, get that divisional win, and then you're in a situation where you can pretty much control your own destiny. Because if the Bucs win on Monday night, if they beat the Falcons next week, all of a sudden they're sitting at 6-2, while the Falcons will have dropped significantly in the overall standings. Going to jump into the chat real quick. We got Hefty Laces saying, is it bad that I have James' entire intro completely memorized? No, that's not bad. That means you are a dedicated listener, and I appreciate you so much. But for those that are just tuning in for the first time, I want them to know all the information that you already have memorized. But Hefty, I appreciate you so much. That is a fantastic comment. Fausto in the chat. On my way to the game now. Enjoy. I hope that your presence brings the Bucs some luck and they get a big win. We got Demon Hunter in the chat saying Culp has great speed for a tight end. He kind of reminds me of Darren Waller. I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on him yet, but man, was he fun to watch at Washington. He can really make some plays. I think his healthy scratches so far this season have to do a lot with how far along Payne Durham came in his rookie season last year, and the fact that Keeft is a better blocking tight end than Culp is. But it's about acclimating himself to the offense, getting used to how this Liam Coen system operates, and really getting more comfortable before they throw him out there. With Payne Durham out, he's going to get an opportunity. Whether or not he sees the field, we'll find out. But he was fun to watch at Washington, and he made some really, really good plays for the Bucs in the preseason. How can the Buccaneers get a win? Offensive and defensive keys to the game coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. So many of us put all of our focus and energy into making sure that we're there to provide for other people and always put ourselves on the back burner. That can lead to problems building up when you leave yourself there too long. That's why it's so important to treat your mental health with the same care and attention that you give to everyone else in your life. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to fit around your schedule, and that way you don't have to leave yourself on the back burner anymore. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. History, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. But even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, and my personal favorite, Mark Twain, Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, and selected short stories. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just sit back and enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every single day. Every dayers, I'm going to be back with you in like less than 12 hours live on YouTube for our live post-game reaction episode. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube with the notifications turned on so you can join in on the live chat. In the meantime, the new Locked On NFL is here and it's twice a day. Join the madman Tyler Rowland, who kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then swing by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts. You get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make it your second listen on the Locked On NFL channel on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Talking about my keys to the game in this one, and I know it's easy to say, force feed Chris Godwin, force feed Mike Evans, protect Baker Mayfield. But here's where I really think the Bucs can get an edge in this game. Offensively, take shots early. I mentioned it a little bit ago, but if I'm Liam Coen and Baker Mayfield, I am taking a deep shot or two early in this game. It can be to Palmer, it can be to Evans, it can be to Jalen McMillan. I don't care who it is. Get those safeties to play back and worry about the Bucs airing it out at home. That's the only way that you're going to start to create opportunities in the run game against the NFL's best rush defense with this three-headed monster that the Bucs now have at running back. Baker is going to connect on some of those deep shots. It's going to turn into huge gains or touchdowns. That's not only going to ignite a home crowd, but it's going to energize the defense. Ultimately, you want them to connect because it's going to open up everything else when they know that that deep shot connected or hooked up or turned into an explosive play. And I'm not really sure that this is a game where you can hyper target Chris Godwin. If he has Marlon Humphrey shadowing him in the slot, it's going to be a really tough matchup all night long. Godwin will still get targets. He'll still make plays. He'll still move the chains on third down, but it's not going to be one of those double-digit reception games for 80 or 90 yards. That kind of game is going to go to Mike Evans. Evans' hamstring issue and all is going to have a significant advantage against the Ravens corners all night. He's the guy that needs to come away with 10 or 12 receptions for a $150 and a touchdown or two. But those one-on-one opportunities that he wins 9 times out of 10 will open up if the safeties have to respect the deep ball. Those running lanes are going to open up if the Ravens have to respect the deep ball. The Bucs need another one of those 8 or 9 play touchdown drives on their first possession, but create an opportunity, manufacture an opportunity for Baker to bomb it down the field. On the second drive, right out of the gate, first down, bomb it down the field. Take those shots and let the dominoes fall to the Bucs' advantage. Defensively, it's exactly what you would expect. Stay disciplined and keep contained so that Lamar does not gash you on the ground. Derrick Henry is problem enough. He's probably going to have a really good fantasy day for those of you that have him playing tonight. He has over 90 yards in 4 straight games, over 100 yards in 3 of the last 4 games. He was 1 yard shy of 200 yards just a couple weeks ago. All of those games were wins. The Ravens started this season 0-2, and Henry had under 90 rushing yards in both of those games. That's the big number in this one. If you can keep Derrick Henry under 90 rushing yards, you have a shot. Jumping out to an early lead helps the Buccaneers steer this ship, but you cannot give up third down conversions because of Lamar legs. I need Kalijah Cansey and Logan Hall sealing up those edges. I need Levante or Britt playing quarterback spy. I need Antoine to kind of be the floater in the secondary, that he can come up and help in run relief, or he can read Lamar Jackson's eyes and play back a little bit, playing the pass. That is really the only way that you are going to beat this Ravens team. Lamar has not thrown an interception in 5 straight Monday night games, but you certainly increase your odds of forcing him into a mistake if you have a lead and you can seal off his running lanes. Force him into bad passes or force him into throwing the ball away. His legs cannot be the reason that Baltimore wins this game. Force him to be a pocket passer all night long, behind on the scoreboard and behind the sticks, and you're really going to give this team an opportunity to win. I cannot stress this enough. Derrick Henry is playing like he's 25 years old. He is going to be a problem. But if you have Vita in the middle there, you have KJ or Levante crashing, you have Antoine playing that floater position where he can react to the run or he can react to the pass, and you limit Derrick Henry's carries to 1 or 2 yards on first down. That's when you start to set up the Ravens offense being behind the sticks. You're going to have Zion McCollum out there on Zay Flowers. You're going to have Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, which can be serious problems for this defense with the way that they play against tight ends. But if you can get Lamar behind, force him into third and medium to third and long, and remove those running lanes by having Levante just sit there and play the way Derek Brooks used to play against Michael Vick, that's when you're really going to give yourselves a chance to force a mistake, force a takeaway, or get off the field on third down. Let this Buccaneers offense cook and give you some cushion. Going to jump into the chat again. We got Coach RJ. Mayfield cannot have a high turnover game against this type of team. I agree wholeheartedly. I think last week was an outlier. He had one bad quarter. You can attribute one of those interceptions to being his fault for sure. One of them was absolutely not his fault. One of them is kind of up for debate. I could agree with you either way. But yeah, the Bucs offense has to protect the football. They have to jump out to a lead, and then they cannot make those stupid mistakes that give the Ravens offense multiple chances, especially at home. The more opportunities you give the Ravens offense, the more worn down your defense is, the harder Derrick Henry is going to run. And that is a recipe for disaster for any defense in the NFL. Let's see. We have Jolly Jigs saying, historically, we do pretty good against Henry. I'm worried about Lamar. While that's correct, historically, the Bucs have done well against Henry. Historically, when the Bucs have faced Henry, he has had terrible quarterbacks. Ryan Tannehill, Will Levis, those guys are not going to, instill fear in the pass defense. So it's been shut down Henry, remove him from the game because you have a lead and you're forcing the Titans to play from behind. And that's really when they've been able to tee off. Derrick Henry is a whole different animal now that he's on an offense with a 2-time MVP quarterback and, a couple of pass catchers that can make some really big plays in a hurry. Prediction time is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. The Buccaneers are 3.5-point home underdogs to the Baltimore Ravens with an over-under of 49.5, and they still trail the Falcons in the odds to win the NFC South, sitting at plus 175. You're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You don't need to win, just place your first $5 bet, and FanDuel is going to give you $200 in bonus bets. You can throw all 200 on the Bucs to win the division. If you're confident that they can overtake the Falcons, then you're going to get yourself a nice little return. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to download America's #1 sportsbook. Whether you're dodging tackles on the field or cheering from your couch, The Joint Chiropractic has your back, literally. As an official chiropractor of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're here to make sure you're always in the game, no matter your role. If you're feeling the pain after a long week or just looking to stay active, they offer personalized care to help you bounce back stronger. 90% of elite athletes, including NFL pros, rely on chiropractic care to stay at the top of their game and perform their best. At The Joint, you don't need an appointment. Just walk in and get the care you need same day. No scheduling hassles. Just walk in whenever it's convenient for you. Here's the real kicker. As a Bucs fan, you can get your first visit for just $19. Head over to Buccaneers.com. Check out the contests and promotion section under the fans tab and download the offer. A great deal for the best fans. Head to thejoint.com to find your nearest Tampa area location. Wrapping things up here on a live preview episode of the Locked On Bucs podcast. The Bucs and Ravens face off at Raymond James Stadium Monday night, with the Bucs being 3.5-point home underdogs with a 49.5-point over-under. Of course, I did not have Evan give his predictions on Wednesday because it was just too far away from the game. So he sent me his predictions. I'm going to drop those in. You guys can start dropping your bolds, your player of the games, your score predictions. I'll get to as many of those as I can at the end of the show. But Evan's bold prediction is that Ravens tight ends combine for 150 yards. That is a nightmare scenario for Buccaneers fans. As somebody who is starting 5 players on Monday night in fantasy, with Mark Andrews being one of them, I wouldn't mind a whole lot of yardage out of Mark Andrews as long as it came in a losing effort, right? Right. My bold prediction for this one, Baker Mayfield is going to have 4 touchdown passes again. There's going to be a lot of players getting targets in this one. Baker has been incredible, and he's been incredible against some tough pass defenses. He's going up against one that he can absolutely dice up. So if the Bucs give him the time that he needs to let his pass catchers win those battles against a bad secondary, he's going to have a monster game. Baker this season already has 2 games with 4 touchdown passes compared to just 1 all of last season. I think it's going to be Baker's arm that keeps the Bucs in this one. Predictive player of the game, Evan said Mike Evans. He's predicting that Mike Evans has 2 touchdowns. I'm cool with that. My predictive player of the game is Antoine Winfield Jr. If the Bucs are going to prevent Evans' bold prediction from coming true, Winfield is going to have to make some plays and ensure that Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are not shredding the defense. KJ Britt is a huge liability in coverage, and if he has to go up against either one of those guys, it's going to be a problem for the Bucs. I mentioned that the Ravens are 27th in the NFL against tight ends. The Bucs are actually 16th, but it certainly doesn't feel that way. Juwan Johnson for the New Orleans Saints last week, he got off to a really hot start, had some really good plays. Kyle Pitts had his best game of the season this year against the Bucs 2 weeks ago. The Buccaneers are vulnerable against tight ends. The Ravens have two really good ones. Winfield not only needs to play that floater role to keep an eye on Lamar and make sure that he doesn't take off and run for 5, 10, 15 yards, but he also needs to keep an eye on where Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are so that he can read what Lamar's doing and create some pass breakups, maybe even an interception. As far as the score is concerned in this one, Evan has predicted the Ravens to come away victorious, win their 6th straight against the Bucs, move to 23-1 against the NFC with Lamar at quarterback. He's saying Ravens 31, Bucs 27. And I thought about this one a lot yesterday. I was working on my prediction for the 813.tv. We do staff predictions every single week where we give our score and maybe throw in a bold prediction or what we think is going to happen. And the more I thought about it, the more I started to think this, I've said it on this show for weeks. This Buccaneers team can hang with anybody. So even though they're going up against one of the worst passing defenses in the NFL, and they're going up against the best rushing offense in the NFL, as long as Baker and the offense is healthy, every single time they set foot on the field, they give the Bucs an opportunity to score. And I think with the energy from the crowd, being at home for the first time since Milton hit, I know I keep going back to that, but it's a real thing. We talked about it on the squad. For those of you that check out the squad shows, that is a real thing. Being in front of those fans at home, the Bucs are going to feed off of that. And I have this feeling, and it was still with me when I woke up this morning, that the Bucs are going to win this one. And they're going to move to 5-2. Give me the Bucs 34, the Ravens 30. I didn't say it wouldn't be stressful, but I think the Buccaneers come away with a win. Let's jump in and see some of your guys' predictions. We got Demon Hunter saying 35-30. I have to assume that is the Bucs. We got Benjamin. His bold prediction: Braswell sacks Lamar and forces a fumble. I like that one. I mentioned the stat about Lamar not throwing interceptions on Monday Night Football. I didn't say anything about whether or not he fumbles the ball. Narav, bold prediction: 6 sacks for the Bucs tonight. If the Bucs get 6 sacks, they're going to win this game. Jolly Jigs says Tyke Smith gets a pick 6. I love that. DU says, have Baker, Evans, Winfield, McLaughlin, Henry, Flowers, and Roquan playing in fantasy tonight. I need a high-scoring game. I got Baker, Godwin, McLaughlin, J.K. Dobbins, and Mark Andrews. That was the other one. I knew I was missing one. Let's see. We got, oh, goodness. We got Ben in the chat. Ravens 35, Bucs 24. I like the honesty. It's okay if the Bucs don't win this one. We got RHM Mikey Dub saying 34-31 Bucs. We got we got David in the chat rocking the Antoine Winfield jersey in his profile pick, 26-10 Bucs. You're way more optimistic about that defense than I am in this one. Let me get one more prediction in here. Let's see. Tampa says if we couldn't stop Cousins, we can't stop Lamar. That's not necessarily true. To me, it was a bad game plan against the Falcons. They didn't make the adjustments that they needed to. This is a completely different game, and it's a completely different style of quarterback that they're preparing to go up against. The Bucs have done pretty well against mobile quarterbacks. They've let them run the ball, but have done well containing them in the passing game. I don't think that the two correlate at all. And, every team has their ups and downs. The Ravens lost to the Raiders. It is what it is. So, 1 week doesn't necessarily lead to the other 17 one-week seasons. And tonight is when the Bucs have an opportunity to move to 5-2 and stop the Ravens' 4-game winning streak. That is going to do it for this episode. Please, if you feel so inclined, hit the like button here on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other Buccaneers fans find the show. But make sure you're subscribed on YouTube with the notifications turned on. You'll know when I go live for the post-game reaction episode. Would like to see all of you back in the live chat. I appreciate each and every one of you so much. Check out everything we got going on over at the 813.tv. Follow along on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider. Thank you. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy. See you tonight. Fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.